Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today's guest is another request. We've had several OGs on this podcast as our listeners know, and this guy is an OG from way back. He is possibly John Will's first brown belt, received his brown belt in 1997, and I believe held a brown belt for 27 years. So that might be some kind of a record. We're looking forward to chatting with him about that and many other stories from back in the day when he was John Will's traveling companion and got up to all sorts of adventures. He is now a black belt under John Will, and he is Chris Chalmers. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you. Geez, you know more about me than I do.
I've done a little bit of research. Yeah.
So
Kim's good with his research things, you know. It's awesome.
So who put you up to this? Who was the person?
It was a combination of Jerry Young and James Jelly. They were the two that were pushing for you, and they're the two that you can go back to in terms of my my homework and my research. If there's anything that you didn't want to share, they've told me about.
No, they probably told you enough stories as it is.
Let's start with a story, Chris. Where did you first see or find jiu-jitsu? What got you into it, and when was that?
Well, I think I was about 14. Would have been about 1987, 86. I was around, what would have been, 14, 15. I was doing some karate at school and taekwondo and stuff like that, and I enjoyed it. And then I think I read a magazine. John might have done Blitz magazine by then, and I think I was reading it, back then, in the 80s. It was there's no internet, of course. It was just magazines, what we had to get info from. And I think I read about him, and then I heard he was in town in Geelong, like underneath the silos. It was like this little room. I thought, this looks pretty cool. So I heard a little bit about it. So I rode my bike into town. I walked into this, it was almost like a little dungeon room. It had like brick, concrete pillars in the middle of it, and they were all in black gis. And back then it was Penjack Salat. So that's what John was, really into back then. And then I walked in, and these guys were like, it was just full on. I thought, this is it. This is where I need to be. So it was sort of like, started off with that, started training with John in there. And, as he being young, all the guys were in there were really good. And then it just sort of evolved. John would travel, and then he'd come back, and then he sort of talk about jiu-jitsu, whether he's at the time in one of his travels overseas, whether he picked it up or not, but he'd come back and he was talking about jiu-jitsu. Penjack Salat was more stand-up based training. And then when he come back, we started doing like figure four arm locks and chokes and back chokes and a mount. And at the time I go, this is a little bit, I don't know, strange-ish. And then it just grew. And then John was in, we went for Salat into contemporary freestyle. It was, I might have got this wrong. And then it was shoot boxing. And then he eventually went full-time into jiu-jitsu, and it just sort of evolved. And John would go away, come back, and then he'd have all these new things. And then he'd go away, come back, and it was just new techniques. And it just sort of grew from there. And we could just tell, I think in the late 80s, when the first UFC came out, we moved locations from the silos into pretty much into where he is still today. And then we renovated that, then moved in, and then it just took off. Like it just blew up, and we were doing seminars at karate schools. Then the Gracies come out. I think it was Horian come out as well at the time to Australia. Did some seminars, and it just blew up. So I was into it right in the early stages and rode the wave, which was good.
So when you say seminars, Chris, were you sort of John's Yuki through those seminars?
Yeah, look, for a long time. Like in those days, we were back then. I remember doing they ran a seminar with the Gracies in the old YMCA in town, which is a judo school, and the Kokushin karate was massive in Geelong at that time. That was basically it, Kokushin karate. And we did it in there, and there was all these black belts lined up. They come in and to see what this jiu-jitsu thing was about. And then, you know, I was still only in there for a couple of years at that stage, and we just smashed them. Well, I got them to the ground, and it was just, all you knew was like a back choke or an armbar, and that was enough. And they were like blown away by this, and they were like, hang on a minute, I haven't been a black belt for 10 years or 15 years, and now I'm getting, you know, taken out by some white belt guy, you know, young kid. I was still only young at that stage. And that's when I looked at it and gone, hey, there's something right in this. This is really good. And then it was, you know, another guy, Merv Nealis, he used to run like a big camp. He was like Seido Karate. So John asked me if I'd go down there and then teach all those guys, you know, some basic stuff as well as part of their seminars. And then after that, John got into the seminar circuit. So he was traveling Tasmania, which we spent a lot of time in Tassie. That's how we knew those Tassie guys. We'd go down there, and then we'd go fishing while we're down there. We'd go fly fishing. But at the time, I was open for it. I was like the guy, you know, that out the front of the class and wrestle everyone, and I just loved it. You know, it was just everyone that was there. You know, all the Bob Jones guys come down. And then we just wrestle. John would run the seminar, and, you know, I'd be out in the middle and, you know, as the crash test dummy type of thing, and then do it. And I think we ended up going to Perth. There's a competition in Perth, and we went over there. And then that was new to them. It was sort of a branch for John to expand over there. And I think Jason Gotch, and that's where I met Jason Gotch. I think you guys, Jason and Gerald and Habby Heskey and that were over there. So it was like a competition that they had, and then we did a seminar on the next day. You know, those guys were great. We had an absolute ball over there.
Speaking of that seminar, I've heard there's a bit of a story to that one, that you tapped everybody at that seminar. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, yes, there's another guy, Les Johnson Jr. We called him. Part of the training is John got me one day. He goes, hey, I've got to train these group of guys up in Melbourne. This is a little bit of a leader. And then I go, okay, where is it? It was up in near the racecourse, Flemington, and they had like a gym up there. And he said, can you go up there and train these guys? And I said, yeah, okay. So I went up there, and it was the SOG guys. And I remember going into the change room, and then I'm in the change room getting changed, and, you know, I was still fairly young. And these guys in like black outfits come in, and they still had all their gear on. And I'm going, what am I doing here? Like, these guys got guns, you know? So we ended up doing some stuff with them, and they ended up really got into it. And, you know, John was, you know, training for them for a long time. So I become good friends with a few of them. And one of them was junior American guy. And he come over to Perth with us. And then after the tournament that night, the boys took us out, Jason and Gerald took us out, and we probably had a few too many drinks than what we should, like way too many drinks. We played up a little bit, had some fun at the Burswood Casino and a bit of wrestling out on the front lawn. And then the next day, John seen the state of us, and he was like, you know, are you serious? So he was like, you're out the front, you know. And there, I don't know how many people at this seminar, a lot. There was a lot, 100-odd people there. And he pulled a few of us out the front, and then he just lined everyone up and said, there you go one by one. I'll never forget, one of the instructors that was there, he was like 130-odd kilo, and he waited till last, you know. And I don't know how many people we went through at the time. And look, the thing is, they hadn't seen a lot of jiu-jitsu then, so it was quite easy, you know, like a cross-lapel choke. You know, these guys, they would just get you down, cross-lapel choke, armbar, next. And he was waited till last, and he went for it, you know. I sort of pissed at him at the moment, but John was like, oh, well, there's a lesson that you got to learn. Do these seminars, and, you know, you're going to go and do what you did, pay the price the next day. Yeah.
Did it feel magical back then, Chris? Like, you're talking about, like, you're still like a really young bloke back then, and then you go and you tap a room full of people, and, you know, guys who are 130 kilos. Like, did it feel magical then, mate?
Yeah, it did. You sort of had something that no one else knew. You know, you were doing something, magic, that they didn't know about, because ground game, no one really understood what the ground game is. So it was sort of like you had a cheat code, and I loved it. We had many people back at the club used to come in and, karate guys, kung fu guys. I remember a kung fu guy come into the club one Saturday, because we used to train every Saturday. And a guy come in and he was like, I don't know, some high-ranked kung fu guy, some sash or whatever it was. And he goes, look, I want to try it out. Because we had a lot of people they heard about it and they wanted to challenge. They wanted to see how good this jiu-jitsu thing was, So he come in and he said, oh, I want to try it out. And I said, okay. So we jumped on the mat and basically he threw a kick. I grabbed him, took him down, rolled him over, back choke, got back up. He goes, let's go again. So I go, okay. So we did the same thing happen again. And then he goes, let's go again. And I said, hang on a minute, mate. Like, you've got up twice now and you're perfectly fine. You're trying to take my head off here. You're trying to either kick me in the head, punch me in the head, whatever you're doing. If we're going to do it again, I'm not going to be as nice. And he's like, yeah. Okay. So anyway, I mounted the guy and he put some pressure point in my shoulder. And look, my arm sort of went numb. Like whatever he knew, it was good. So I just slapped him in the head with my other hand. Just slapped him, with my other hand. And then he rolled over and he got up and he said, mate, I've been training kung fu or whatever it was for so many years. I know like 150 techniques. Not one of them worked. He goes, none of it worked against what you were doing. I could not stop what you were doing whatsoever. So it was sort of like, as I said, it was like that magical thing that you had something that against guys that have been training so many years, you had this advantage.
Hey, Chris, on that, mate, did it feel like a challenge match, or did you think people were were people coming in with something to prove, going, oh yeah, that jiu-jitsu stuff or whatever, like my stuff's better? Or
Yep.
were people a little bit more open and going, hey, what is this? I want to feel it. Like, did you get a sense of that?
Both. There were some people that were like, hey, I want to see what this is. I want to, I've been training. I've invested a long time into my martial art. I've invested so much time. I just want to see what this is and see what the difference it is. I was just saying to them, hey, don't discount what you've done, your training. It's not as if it's all been wasted. Your skill is your skill. You're probably very good at your area, and then, but some of them would come in and you just knew straight away. Like I had a few, a couple of buildings in town. We used to go in and, some guys that wanted to have a fair crack, and it was like, yeah, it's sort of like a no rulesy type of fight at the same time. They wanted to really, and you just knew, like, like jiu-jitsu, the good thing is you can take someone down and put them down and roll them out and then control them, and they can get up and walk away. You can't do that, that was a good thing. Like if I was doing some kickboxing and boxing at the time, and you used to walk away from that going, shit, now I need ice. I've been beat up, where you can train jiu-jitsu flat out and not really feel beat up. And then when you're doing it to someone that's challenging you, it's sort of like at the same time, they need to understand that, the levels that, you can hit them at the same time. You can hit them if you want. But I'm showing you what the skill is.
And Chris, can you tell us about the unsanctioned or MMA or no rules fight that you had on the roof of the Port of Geelong Authority building?
I don't know, you knew that. Yeah, he was a Taekwondo champion, that guy. And he worked at a place where I was working at the time, and he was like, hey, I've heard that you do this, and, I'm a Taekwondo champion. Let's have it. Let's do it. And I've gone, what do you sort of mean? And he goes, well, I think he was a bit cocky at the start. He was sort of like, I think it's all full of shit. You'll never take me down on the ground, because he was always about distance and stuff like that. And I'm going, all right, fair enough. Let's put a bit on this. I think we put some money on it, maybe $100 at the time. And then he ended up he wanted to do it on the rooftop of this building, and when you're looking at that, and jiu-jitsu is great until you're doing it on concrete, or on asphalt. And I was like, okay. And I didn't have any wrestling boots or anything like that at all up there. He had his little taekwondo slippers on. And I thought, this is going to hurt. I thought, fuck it, he's cocky as. And he would throw these windmill, like he'd line up and he was like a windmill. Like, I don't know if you see the taekwondo guys, they just spin, it's like a windmill. And I just kept my distance at the time. And I thought, I'm going to wear one and I'm going to dump him on this concrete. Basically, that's what happened. I just wore one of his kicks. As soon as it hit me, he stopped, grabbed him, tipped him upside down, dumped him on the concrete. And, he was going like a thrashing machine and, a few little touch-ups, with him. And they just roll. As soon as they're getting touched up like that, just roll over. And that was it. But ripped my feet apart, smashed my knee. I don't know if he thought, I'm going to do it on a building that you don't really want to go to the ground with. And after that, I just knew it's not great. Train on concrete in Nashville is not a smart thing to do.
Is that what you found people did, Chris? So as soon as you got somebody to the ground, they would kind of just turn like belly down sort of thing? Like, was that like the initial reactions that you kind of got from people?
Yeah, because they didn't know. They didn't know what their initial thing was, roll over, get up.
Yeah.
I think it's instilled in us since we were babies is, how do you get to your feet? You don't flip from your back to your feet. You're on your back, you roll over and you stand up. So I think it's like an instinct reaction to do. And especially if you're giving them a few slaps around the side of the head, they cover up and then they'll roll over. Very rare that they'll stay on their back and try and fight from their back. It was always pretty much the same in my experience. It was just roll over. They'll try and get to their feet. And then you just jam their legs back, get your hooks into them, sit on their back, and then, just a figure four choke, pretty much, I did give a few, like the old wet willy thing in the ears, just to take the piss a little bit.
And Chris, your travels did take you overseas as well. Can you tell us about hanging out with Baz Rutten in Japan?
Yeah, that was in a guy we got into. It was a shoot boxing thing. He come into the gym in the John's Club one day and asked us if we wanted to do this, go over and pancrase or whatever at the time, and didn't know a great deal about it. And then it was me, Dave Moore, and actually Junior. He asked us if we wanted to go. So in hindsight, went over there unprepared. We did a lot of more gi stuff. It was all no gi stuff. We didn't do a lot of, because we were so committed to jiu-jitsu, didn't do too much stand-up kickboxing or boxing, didn't really go into that side of it. That was like early, pancrase is like really early MMA-ish type of stuff. And then, went over and then got set up. And then I ended up going to the club where Baz Rutten and the guy Jason DeLucia, that he was an early pancrase guy. He did really well on it and met Baz. And then I actually, hope you didn't read it, but I footlocked him in the ring. Probably my claim to fame is footlocking Baz Rutten, But he was a great guy. And then we ended up, going out for dinner. But this manager that we had at the time, I didn't know nothing about him. And he goes, oh, look, we'll go to a club and just have a couple of drinks. And I'm going, hey, mate, we're on tomorrow. Like, I'm in this foreign place, didn't really know. But what he did, he used us. What we found out, he used to run like, not so much escorts. He'd get like women over there to become working clubs, and whatever they did in those clubs, I don't really know. But he was running that sort of racket on the side. So he'd promise them they'd be like waitresses and then they'd commit to it. And once they're there, they're sort of locked in. It's really seedy shit that he was doing. And apparently a couple of them bailed on him. And then he was using me and Bass as heavies to go into this club to strong arm one of the owners about giving him his girls back. But we didn't know what was going on. And me and Bass walked into this club and we're sitting there. Next minute, these guys got handguns on us, because they knew what we were doing, but we had no idea what was going on. And we're going, what's going on here? And Bass is going, he starts carrying on and talking to this guy, Bob, asking what the hell's going on. And I think one of the club owners knew who he was, obviously, because he was a big star in Japan. And then that sort of calmed things down a little bit. You know, they sort of, we were saying, look, we don't know why we're here. No idea. We're not here to strong arm you or whatever. And we ended up leaving, and we didn't get home till like 4 a.m. in the morning, and Bass lost his shit at Bob. And, you know, that put a big damper on the, you know, getting guns put on in the middle of some random town in Japan, some seedy King's Crossing type of club in Japan. But then I was out with him in the morning, and he was doing chin-ups on the train, and people were kicking him in the legs, and he's just a character, a full-on character.
Yeah, some people are different, aren't they? Some people are built different, like physically and mentally, for sure.
Yeah. He's just like so. I mean, how he is, like when you see him, is how he actually is. He's super aggressive. He's just, you know, he's a kickboxer, super friendly and super friendly guy. And I mean, I didn't know him from the bar side, but you know, he was just so friendly to her and helped her out as much as he can. And you know, he's just a really great guy. But it was funny because the people just loved it. He was like a god. You know, when you're walking around and stuff, and he was like a god to a lot of people.
Mate, I reckon we just carry on with some of these stories, mate. Just keep going. What do you reckon, Kim? You've done awesome research. Kim, what else you got there? These are awesome.
You can thank James and Jerry for these ones. And yeah, let's also talk about your journey as well, Chris. So 27 years on the brown belt. That the guys tell me the main reason for that is you really focus much more on your MMA. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, look, I sort of stopped. It was in a time, I think it was 97 or whatever it was. You know, I think it was the first ranked brown belt here. There was a big breakup between John and Peter Devine at the time. You know, I was friends with Peter. You know, Peter Devine, and you know, I did stuff at his house for him. I knew his wife as well. I was doing some training there with him and helping him build his studio. And then all of a sudden he come back and he was like, I'm going to be jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go full-time jiu-jitsu. And that's all it is. It's be all and end all. And, you know, and then him and John he separated off. I don't know the ins and outs between what went on between them both, but Peter was like, I'm the jiu-jitsu guy. That's it, you know. And John at the time, he was still shoot fighting, you know, so he still wanted to keep a bit of the stand-up stuff as well as the jiu-jitsu. So that they sort of separated, and me and Melissa, have you had Melissa on, Mel? Melissa Will? Yeah. She's a gun, Mel. And me and Melissa went over to Hawaii for the Pan Packs. I think it was the Pan Packs. Went over there. Can't remember whether that was 97, 98 or whenever it was. I think I still might have been blue belt back then or purple belt or whatever. And we got into it was like a massive thing. It was all Brazilians in there, and we walked in, and it was sort of like, you know, we robbed the bank and then we walked back in. It was really, people knew the same thing as what I was saying about Bass. We sort of walked in and everyone's looking at us going, what are you doing here? And anyway, they were going to ban us from competing. You know, they were going to ban us and say, you're not going to compete, you're not going to do it. And it was all to do with the bust up between John and Peter. From what I can sort of, you know, my opinion of it was, you know, Peter was trying to establish himself in Australia as the premier jiu-jitsu person, Brazilian jiu-jitsu person in Australia. Didn't really want us over there training or competing, you know, if he did well or whatever it was, going back home with that. He wanted to establish himself, and I think he was involved with the Gracies at the time, where John was more, you know, we were Machado at the time. And then it was like a shit fight, you know, it was just on, and he was there with Richard Norton. Hegan was there, and then they were screaming at us, you know, basically saying that we're not going to compete. And then Peter was saying to one of the Gracies, you know, John said all this in Australia, he's bad for jiu-jitsu, and given his opinion to them. And then Hickson come over, and then everyone went silent. Hickson come over and basically said, you know, if they want to compete, let them compete. And he said to me, if you don't win by submission, you're not going to win. And I'm going, okay, you're in someone else's environment. And that's how it basically went. It was first match, choked the guy, got the guy out. Next match, same thing. Then the next match, got two guys back. They stood us up. I think I got an arm bar or something in. The referee broke it up. And then it was just blatantly obvious you're not going to win this thing. And that guy ended up winning the gold medal in the end. And it was sort of like they kept separating us. And then, we got up, match was over. Referee pushed me out the way, grabbed the other guy's hand, stuck it in the air. And I was so pissed. I was just so angry at the whole thing. And then people come over and said, oh, well, even some of the Brazilians come over and go, mate, that happens to us as well. Like, it's very political. And then Peter said to me, you can appeal it and spend $150 appealing it, but, waste your money type of thing. Sort of like, mate, I was sort of friends with you not long ago. Now I'm dealing with this sort of shit. He ended up going home with a gold medal, but I didn't see any. They made us sit on the edge of the mat and wait for our matches. If we left, they would have disqualified us, so we had to sit there. On the edge of the mat to do it. So it left a real bad taste in my mouth, that whole politics. And I think after that, I just got a little bit past it all and I just loved the training, meeting like the guys in Tassie and Perth and all that side. I didn't want to get involved in all the political side of it. So I think at a point, maybe around 2000, I moved up to Melbourne for a month and I was training at the gym up there and doing bits and pieces up there, and then just sort of, I don't know, lost touch with it a bit. Yeah, and that's probably why the black belt thing, the brown belt thing spread out as far as it did, at the time. And I said to John when he actually gave me my black belt, I said, I think at the time, getting that first black belt was sort of like, did you deserve it? Did you actually, deserve the belt? And he sort of deliberately didn't do things so you didn't have to get it in a way. I don't know, self-sabotaging thing. I don't know what it was. But yeah,
tell us a bit more about the day that you got your black belt, Chris. Can you tell us about your actual black belt grading?
Well, I was training back at John's club. I went back and seen John. I hadn't been there in a fair while. I went back and seen him and said, hey, I'd love to come back, to come back training. He's going, yeah, sure, And it was sort of funny. I remember going in, and then when I was in there for that long period of time, older guys would come in. And he said to me, fuck you old guys coming in. He used to give him a bit of a hard time, the old crew coming back in. And then when I went back in, it was like, shit, I'm the old guy now. I'm going to cop it in here, and then a lot of people in there knew that, I was involved in it for a long time, and they wanted their pound of flesh. They wanted to, I thought, yeah, I deserve it. I gave it out. I deserve it back. And then I was training for a bit, and then, we had a grading one night. I didn't expect it, and he said, look, I had this in my bag, I don't know, 15 years, whatever it was, 20 odd years ago, and he didn't show up. So, now he had it in his bag that night. It was probably a lot to do with James, James Jelly. James is like I don't know, he's like that little Tassie devil. He's just constantly at you, and he's the one that's kept me coming back, time and time again. And he was like, come back, and you'll get it. So it was, for me, it was like, I don't know, finishing something off, it was like finishing something I started, I don't know, what would it have been, 40 odd years ago, I suppose, 39 years ago. Yeah, it's just that finish. So it was a bit surreal, getting it at the time. Whether I sort of, you deserved it, but I think John's like, if he's going to give you something, he means it. He wants you to have it.
Do you remember your speech, mate? Did you give a speech after you got your black belt from John?
Yeah, sort of remember that, saying,
Hey, Chris, sorry, mate. Chris, just before you do carry on with that story, because I do want to hear it. When you got your black belt, was it pretty formal? Was it like, everybody lines up, he calls you out, or was it like, you kind of roll in and it just gets dropped on you? Like, how was that part before we get to your speech?
It was, we did the class. We knew it was sort of an end of year. It was an end of year thing. And then it was sort of like we finished the class. We were all sitting against the wall. And then he goes, I've got a few belts and that to give out. And then he got some blue belts and some purple belts and a couple of brown belts and stuff like that he had to give out. And then he said, pulled out a black belt. And then at the time I didn't really think, because, being away for so long and going back, it was sort of like, I had, as he said, he had this in his bag, 27 years ago, whatever it was. And I didn't show up, but now you're showing up. He said you deserved it back then. So he still deserved it back. And that's how I sort of took it as. I didn't want it like a charity thing or anything like that, to go, hey, he's a charity bout. He goes, well, you deserved it back then, but you didn't show up. So now you have, and you're still there, passed it on. Yeah. So I was quite, it was a sort of emotional thing as well, getting, receiving that. And like I had opportunity, not that I had a lot of opportunity, but I could have trained at other places. And, there's another guy in Geelong training, and he said, if you want to come here, you'll give me, I'll get your black belt here, and some other, places, other jiu-jitsu academies go, well, if you come, train here, you get your black belt here. But I thought, what, I started it there. I didn't want to get it from anyone else. If that makes any sense. It's sort of like, this is your origin of where you start. Anywhere else wouldn't have felt right. Wouldn't have probably meant as much.
And do you think, is it fair that in my homework that I did, someone sort of referred to you as John's mat enforcer? Would you say that's an accurate?
Back in the day, yeah, probably not so much now. There's a few more grey hairs now, but back in the day, it was sort of like he used to, you saw that guy out, saw that, people would come in or whatever it is. He'd sort of, and he knew I loved it anyway. So I think he knew, you could do it, and I was always up for the challenge. There's a few other places along the time that we had, the enforcing come into a bit of play. Visiting a couple of people here and there that, we had to sort of go, hey, pull your head in type of thing. Yeah, but that's probably accurate back then, not so much today. There's all these new guys, some of the crazy. What I noticed going back is so much new technique, like so many new, new omoplatas and spider guards and stuff like that. It's like anything, it's just going to evolve.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about new techniques, like, so I'm a purple belt, been training 7 years or something now, I think.
Yeah.
And I was getting some lessons today off one of our white belts who is helping me with chair guard, and it's just like, everybody has something, So Chris, tell us all about your chair guard, mate.
Chair guard.
Like, it's just crazy, eh? Like the way that people are coming up nowadays is the information that's out there, the training techniques that we can learn. And obviously people like John and yourself, I'm sure too, Chris, you've done loads of techniques, but they're so much more refined now. And then for people who are just starting, you're getting these very, very refined techniques, so it definitely helps people learn.
Well, one thing I said to John, what I noticed, right, back in the day, like as I said, when John would go away, I'd get close to him, and when we'd grapple, and I think maybe once or twice I ever tapped John, back in those days. And if you got close, he was like, "That's it." You go back overseas for a couple of weeks, come back and just smash you. It was that's the way it operated. That's how we got good. But one thing, like I said to you about that kung fu guy, he knew all, and this is I've said to other people, and whenever I've gone and taught a class, I've said the same thing, is that kung fu guy knew 110 techniques, but he had no control. He didn't have zero control. He can't control you. I think it was Hegan back in the early days as well. He said, unless you can control someone, your technique's no good. All these techniques and arm bars, they're not going to work. So it was sort of like, and we only knew like basic stuff back then, like a bridge and roll, like basic guard pass. They were like these really base fundamental skills. So we got to do the fundamentals over and over and over and over and over because that's all we knew. So it was just like, it was more about controlling people than it was trying a heap of techniques. And then what I sort of seen was when I went back, I could still use the same stuff that I did way back then, now. And I don't know if it's because, now there's so much information. It's like, I need the new guard pass. I need the new one. And this is a new one. And you never really get really good at, the basic stuff. And, even when I spoke to, I was doing stuff with the SOG guys, I go, what's like advanced shooting and stuff like that? And what's advanced shooting? What actually is that? And they've gone, executing your basics over and over and over again. That's advanced shooting, and that's these little things kept popping up, and I've gone, that's what it is. It's getting really good at the basics first and having this great foundation, and then once you got that, then you can build on it. Not needing, you don't need 100 moves. You just need some really, really good ones that well. Then if you want to throw a couple in on top. And that's what I noticed a bit. And I've said to anyone when I go to like Grady and Emily's and they got some, some newer people going into it, I go, don't worry about too much. Just really work on your positioning. You know what it's like. You've heard about how many times have you spent 10 minutes passing a guard and you get to side control or whatever it is, and then you go to do a technique and it's all gone. You spend so much time getting there and you can lose it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was rolling with one of our black belts yesterday, who's a new black belt to us, Gab, who's really, really cool. And I'm like, no, this feels good for me. Like, I feel fine. Like, this is all good. Like, I feel tight in what I'm doing. And then same thing, right? Like, he basically escapes. He's like, hey, man, like, you weren't very tight. I'm like, God damn it, really? I thought I was really tight, So, like, the levels to it are phenomenal, yeah?
Yeah, it is. We wrestled Jean-Jacques back in we went overseas to the US for a trip. I don't know, that was in the mid-90s somewhere. A whole group of us went over. We got to train over there and I loved it. And then we come back and I think I was back for a while. Then I went back for 4 weeks and just trained Redondo Beach and Encino or whatever it was at the Machado School and just lived on a guy's floor and just trained every day, and you just got sucking in that information. I got to train with, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to roll with, like any of the Machados or, high level Gracie guys. It's no matter what you do, you can't do anything. Jean-Jacques, I think he's got a thumb on one hand. And he just made everyone in the room, he did the same thing with, and he makes it look effortless. And it's just basically his level of control is just so good. You got no choice to go where he wants you to go.
One of our teammates, Ivan, he rolled with Jean-Jacques, and Ivan still sits there and he goes, like what he was doing just felt magical. Like it felt effortless, but it just felt magical.
Yeah. It is. I watched the guy that come in. He was probably about 130, 40 kilo bodybuilder guy. And he was like, Jean-Jacques not a big guy. And then, he was giving everything to Jean-Jacques and he's just flying around the room. Like he couldn't even like hold him on the ground. And he was like, fuck's sake, like this is insane. And then you just go, he's just got that, it's like levels, like you said, like levels in anything. But his control of when he wanted to do something, you had no choice. You could chop your arm off and stick it in the cupboard, and then he'd get your arm out of the cupboard and stick it back on, and then armbar your arm. He was really good. And Hegan was the same. He was another level. Like he's different. He was a big guy and he was strong, and he was just trying to push a mountain with that guy.
Given what you were saying earlier, Chris, about like the fundamentals and the basics, do you think there's almost too much information out there, particularly for, people who are coming up the ranks? Would you suggest that people sort of almost shut out some of the noise or a lot of the information because it can almost be overwhelming perhaps for some students who are coming through with, so many different options, so much compared to when you were a white belt and a blue belt and a purple belt. Do you think that it's a good thing to have all this information, or is it too much?
It's good to see, because it opens up your perspective a little bit. I suppose it's like you go see the world and then you can decide where you want to go in the world, what you like. But I think it's good to see, but at the same time, you can't discount, keep doing perfecting those basic skills, because then it's, like we all say today, we're in a swipe right society. You don't like something, you just flick through your phone. You just swipe right, whatever it is. Everyone's got that information coming in, and it's like, I need the new thing. Whether that's drilled into younger people now, like they just need that new thing. And running a club, if you're running an academy and you did the same thing over and over and over again, people are going to go, this is boring. I need something else. So I understand from them, it's sort of like showing new techniques and stuff like that. But you can't see a new technique and then do it in one class, and then the next week you do something else, and then something else, and then something else, because you just never get good at it. I think if you want to add something, you got a really good game, and I think people become I was never really a guardish type of person. I like, getting on top. So that's sort of like the game. So then I just go, okay, my game is if I'm on my back, it's how do I get back to my feet to get on top? Or no, one or two sweeps that I just want to nail these sweeps, and that's all, I want to do. Didn't want to go into, learning other stuff. So I think it's good in learning a lot of new things, but not forgetting that you still need to keep doing a brand new technique's not going to fix your game in a hurry. It's more, I think, from a coaching point of view, which is, John was good at, as well as you're doing something and go, all you need to do is change something, and that makes a big difference rather than learning a new technique to fix it.
Yeah, for me, I feel on my journey so far, like white belt, it's like everything is new and shiny, which is really, really cool. And then blue belt, I'm getting the basics of techniques kind of down a wee bit.
Yeah.
And then now the purple belt, because the way we kind of do things at Dominance where we train, we kind of have themes, So now we're back to, like, let's say at the moment, we're back to doing submissions from the mount. So what I learned as a white and blue belt, I pick it up faster now, but then you hear these different details. You know what I mean? Like, as you get a little bit better, you kind of get the better details. And it's kind of a little bit like in my head, it's like, well, you're eating a tapas plate as a white belt, so there's lots of things. And then as a blue belt, you become like a bit of a home cook. And then as a purple belt, for me, it's like, okay, now I'm dialing in the things that I'm actually enjoying cooking and can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, let alone when you guys are black belts, so you guys are like master chefs now, So it's cool about when you like just dialing those things in just more and more. And I think that's when I've spoken to Kim and a lot of other black belts that we've had on. And it's like when you're a black belt, you become a white belt again, because you go back and you revisit all of these techniques and you're like, oh, hang on, I can fix this. Like, them, but you can now do them better, because you can, you're safer in all the spots.
Yeah. And that's it. It's feeling, sometimes you train, you just want to get on a mount and hold them out. I think there's a difference between control. Like we used to do I remember this competition, I come up against this wrestler. He was a full-on Olympic wrestler guy or whatever. And then he grabbed you and you couldn't move, but neither could he. And I'll give you this example in some places, that when I've gone and helped some classes out, and I've gone, if I've got your wrist, who's got who in a way? Who's got who here? Who's controlling who? And then, I suppose when you're a white belt, you grab on and you hold on for dear life. You do not want to let go. But the issue with that is you can't do anything either. And then controlling is about letting people go where you want them to go, not pinning them there that, they can't. Like, you've wrestled some guys and they're really rigid and they'll get you in their guard and they'll lock you down. And I just lay there. I just won't move. And I've gone, well, I'm not going to waste any energy, because as soon as you let go, I'm out, But eventually you're going to let go. But I'm not going to waste any energy trying, because it's sort of like, to me, that's not control. And as I said, look, Jean-Jacques, he just let you'd go where he wanted you to go. That, to me, that was like superior control. He never hurled you that you couldn't move. Hagen did sometimes, and it was like, he just, you're there. But he still had free hands and free legs and stuff like that. He's using more of his body to control you rather than grabbing on, So, I think that's, what you were saying, you're starting to get a bit more used to maintaining your positions a lot more before you go for stuff. And I say to people, once you get on the mount, move around on the mount, or you get inside control, move around from one side to the other. I think it's north, south, whatever they call it, move around people. Do that a lot more, rather than getting the side control and trying for an armbar. Just practice moving around, north, south, go to maybe a knee ride or come back down and go up and down and just work that, And then once you get really comfortable at that, the arm will just appear, or the choke will just appear. But you know that if you're going for it and they try and escape, you've still got control of them to keep them there.
We're nearly out of time, Chris. Thank you so much for doing this, especially on short notice. And you're a super busy man, so really appreciate you giving up your time. We've got a few little pop quiz questions here that we ask our guests at the end of every episode. You can make the answers as short or as long as you like. So go for it.
All right, mate, let's do this. iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
Strength or flexibility?
Now, strength. Probably, I was never flexible. I'm going to say strength.
Gi or no gi?
Today I like the no gi. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Today I like I like wrestling no gi stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a bit more free.
Pasta or rice? Pasta or rice?
Rice.
Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Guard pull or takedown?
Takedown.
Beautiful.
Not a guard.
I say beautiful, and I don't know why, because I'm a guard puller, but, beautiful. Good for you. What's your preferred learning experiences, mate? Private instructions or online instructions?
With a human, one-on-one. Yeah. That you can beat. I think, one-on-one. Well, back then we didn't have online stuff. Yeah. It was done with a human. Now you've got dummies. I went to a mate's house the other day, and he's got this thing. It looked like a gimp. It was like a gimp in the corner. This black thing.
Yeah.
Like, what are you into?
Yeah.
We always used to get a bit of shit about jiu-jitsu, You gay guys over there used to get a bit of shit about it, but now you've got a gimp man in the corner.
Is it just white belts and blue belts that buy those, or like a brown and black belts buying them, do you think?
Could be either. I don't know. Maybe a white belt thing now, and I do have another a quick story if you want one. We were doing no gi back in the day. There's a group of us upstairs in John's, and we're doing it in like speedos. Thought, let's make it hard. So we had like shorts on and stuff. Let's make this hard. And then we said, let's oil each other up. If we oil each other up, it's going to get really more difficult. And then someone said, what happens if someone comes upstairs? That was it. No oil, pants back on.
It's bad enough as it is, let alone speedos and oil.
Well, that's it. Well, see, back then too, we did a few demonstration stuff at places, and me and Billy Gray, I don't know if you know a guy, Billy Gray. Billy Gray was one of John's original ones as well. Me and him did a demonstration in a nightclub in Melbourne on a fight night, a kickboxing show. And mate, everyone was screaming at us, get out your fags, get out your homos, like flat. We were wrestling on the ground. I don't know if we're going to get out of this place. But that's what a lot of people thought jiu-jitsu was. It was that's what we were doing.
All right, mate. I've got a couple more for you. What's your favourite belt that you've been at?
Probably brown belt because it was the longest one.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Well,
All right, two more. Two more for you, mate. The first one, pretty sure we'll know the answer to this one, Kim. Can you drive a manual car?
Shit, yeah.
Beautiful. And the last one, do you wear Crocs?
Yeah, I live in Crocs pretty much every day.
Kim, is that a
so
Geelong
well,
thing,
Chris, till the end. Still, we better release this episode. Wait, is he going to show us? He's got them on now. Oh my God.
Live in Crocs.
He's Chris, by the look at them.
They're great. I've worn them for people used to laugh at them, and then people get them and go, I understand what you're saying now. I understand.
This is why I won't try them on. There's two reasons. The first reason is my wife will divorce me. And then the second reason, like, what if they are really, really comfortable? So I won't do it.
Yeah.
You do it. I can see it now. You're thinking about it and you'll put them on. Everyone does. Everyone puts them on and then they don't go back. They just.
My sons have done it and they said they're game changers. So, you're right.
Get them off. It's a little bit, you know, like a clog type of thing you put on there.
We've got 100 episodes now of me taking the piss out of people wearing Crocs, so I can't.
Thank you again, Chris, for doing this. As I said, it's been great to hear some of the stories. I'm sure our listeners have also enjoyed this very much. Anyone listening out there, if you have any other recommendations of people you'd like to get onto the show, please do hit myself or Brentos up, and we'll have this episode out for you in a couple of weeks. So, Brentos, do you want to do the wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. That was awesome, mate. You're a very gifted storyteller. I think that came across really nicely. And the other part is you've got obviously loads of stories to tell, mate. So thank you for coming on and sharing some of those. One of the reasons when Kim asked me to be co-host on Roll or Die was for me that I said yes was to hear these stories, mate. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing them. For everybody else out there, please remember to like, rate, and share the podcast. Tell your friends about it. All of these stories that Chris is telling, like we need more people to hear these stories about the original days, you know. So tell your friends, share the episodes. We appreciate that. But that's it for another episode of Roll or Die. And we will see you on the next episode next week. Peace.
See you later.
Thank you.
That was awesome.